Welcome back to another episode of The Shack Show. And in this episode of The Shack Show, I'm going to talk about moon phases. But before we get into the moon phases, I really wanted to talk about, and I'm super excited for this, more excited than almost any other video I've done. And the reason for that being is hopefully you guys might be able to notice is that the quality has been bumped up a bit. So courtesy of you guys, really, we were able to upgrade some of the gear here at Striped Bass Hunt. So for next season, we'll be shooting some higher quality stuff from what I'm capable of doing. So it's going to be probably less high quality than the Striped Bass Hunt show, but much higher quality than pretty much any other fishing YouTuber out there, I'd imagine. So that's going to be pretty awesome. I'm super excited for that. And I'm super excited to really get into next season, do all the fishing stuff. And with part of getting into next season and fishing and everything like that goes planning. And planning is so important that I almost can't stress it enough about how important planning is. So for me, going into my season, I really want to figure out what's going to happen when the moons are big and when they're small. And it really is most, I guess I would say it really affects it the most around the spring. Because for spring fishing, I had it all set up nicely here. This is like a moon phase calendar somebody gave me for Christmas. So I'm just trying to figure out, okay, on here for the month of June, when would there be a new or full moon? So if I look through here, I know that like the first week of June is probably gonna be prime time. So I go to June and I just look down here and I'm trying to see when the full moon is. So the full moon's around, the full moon is the 14th. So that's going to give it some time to warm up off the boulder fields and potentially have a pretty good spring in the boulder fields. I don't necessarily like to fish that early in June off the boulder fields. I feel like, this is better suited for maybe the estuaries and the beaches around this time of year. But if we have a warmer spring, I could imagine the rocks fishing pretty good around that point. Earlier in the year, we have around the 1st is going to be the full moon, the new moon, sorry. So I'm excited that the new moon's going to be, it's going to be a big tide ride at the beginning, which I'm not super hyped about, but I know that as we get further into maybe the first, second week of June is going to look really good for some beach areas. Around this time of year, some of the first go-to things that I look for are fishing in estuaries and off sand beaches. They're kind of my go-tos, I would say. And during that time of year, I try to fish for finicky bass because I personally believe in the spring that a lot of the time the bass are not really actively feeding, and therefore I need to present something to them that they're going to not be able to refuse. So one of my go-tos for that are soft plastics. I did very well with the Algag whippet fish in the spring. I also did really well with the GT, so the gravity tackle eels. And those are kind of my two favorites as far as like sizable soft plastics that I'll be fishing in the spring. I'll also be fishing a lot of live eels too. I'm pretty excited for this, mostly because I'm going to be trying to match like sand eel bites when there's sand eels around, and maybe I'll be trying to match some herring bites when there's herring around. If there's herring around, I'm going to probably throw some more things like maybe minnow plugs, like red fins, are kind of one of my go-tos when there's some herring around and they're maybe feeding on herring, just flooding out of the estuaries in late spring time frame. That's going to be something that I might go and look into a bit, throwing some pretty sizable Danny plugs around as well can be very productive that time of year. Anything that's really slow and is going to get those bass to be a little bit more, or get those bass to feed a little bit more aggressive is going to be a important thing to do. And during that time of year, I'm fishing generally as far as rods go. I'm fishing fairly light. I'll be using my 9-foot light carbon surf with my VSX Van Staal 150 on there. And for eeling, I'll probably use the GSB 101 LS. That is a 1 to 3 ounce 10-foot rod. Or I'll use the GSB Skinner, which is built off the 101 LS blank. And so that's kind of gonna be that size of rod that I'll be using on the bigger end, and on the lighter end I'll be using that 3/8 ounce 2 ounce rod, that Carbon Surf, Lamiglas Carbon Surf. And those are going to be my kind of my go-tos in the early spring, and I hope that that kind of gives you a little perspective on, you know, what I'm looking for and what I'm planning in the early spring, kind of where I'm kind of orienting myself. And I hope you guys enjoy this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. It really helps me out, and I'll see you in the next video.